Most women have been taught the same thing their entire lives. Be a good woman, and the right man will always choose you. But what if that advice is incomplete? What if being endlessly available, endlessly forgiving, endlessly understanding, and constantly putting a man's needs before your own doesn't make you more desirable? What if, for some men, it simply makes you easier to take for granted? This is the truth nobody likes to talk about. A good woman is not a woman who tolerates everything. She is not the woman who stays silent when she is disrespected. She is not the woman who keeps giving after receiving nothing. And she is definitely not the woman who destroys herself just to prove that she loves a man. A truly valuable woman knows how to love without losing herself. And that difference explains why some men walk away from women who appear perfect on the surface. Not because those women are not good enough, but because what they represent requires something from a man. It requires honesty. It requires consistency. It requires emotional maturity. And most importantly, it requires growth. So let's begin with the first reason. A good woman has standards. And standards are uncomfortable for a man who only wants convenience. She doesn't say yes to everything because she's afraid of losing him. She doesn't accept disrespect because she's afraid of being alone. She doesn't chase a man who repeatedly shows her that he doesn't value her. And she doesn't confuse attention with love. When something feels wrong, she addresses it. When something violates her values, she steps back. And when a relationship continuously gives her pain instead of peace, she has the courage to walk away. That kind of woman cannot be controlled through the fear of abandonment because she understands something powerful. Being alone is better than being with someone who constantly makes you feel alone. An immature man may call her difficult. A mature man will understand that she is simply clear about what she will and will not accept. There is a huge difference. A woman with standards isn't creating unnecessary problems. She's refusing to participate in unnecessary problems. And that can scare a man who has become comfortable with women who constantly compromise themselves. The second reason is that a good woman doesn't need constant validation. She can appreciate a man's attention without depending on it for her identity. She can love deeply without making a relationship her entire world. She has her own goals, her own thoughts, her own interests, her own sense of worth. And that creates something extremely powerful. She chooses the relationship. She doesn't desperately need the relationship to feel complete. When a woman believes she cannot survive without a man, she may tolerate almost anything to keep him. But when she knows she will be okay with or without him, her love becomes a choice instead of desperation. And real love becomes stronger when it comes from choice, not fear, not insecurity, not dependence. A healthy relationship should add to your life. It should never become the only reason you believe your life has value. The third reason goes even deeper. A good woman watches actions. She doesn't simply listen to words. A man can say, "I care about you." But if his actions repeatedly communicate the opposite, she notices. He can promise change. She watches whether he actually changes. He can talk about commitment. She watches whether his behavior reflects commitment. Because mature love isn't built on beautiful promises. It's built on consistent behavior. And this is uncomfortable for someone who has learned to survive through excuses. A wise woman doesn't spend her entire life trying to decode mixed signals. She doesn't turn inconsistency into a mystery she has to solve. She observes, and observation gives her clarity. Sometimes the strongest response to confusing behavior isn't another question. It's distance. Because when someone repeatedly shows you who they are, believing them isn't negativity, it's wisdom. The fourth reason is that a good woman expects reciprocity. She understands that love is not supposed to be a one-person performance. If she communicates, she expects communication. If she gives respect, she expects respect. If she makes an effort, she notices whether the other person makes an effort too. She doesn't carry an entire relationship on her back, while the other person simply enjoys the benefits. That doesn't mean everything has to be perfectly 50-50 every day. There will be days when one person gives more, There will be moments when one person needs extra support. But over time, there must be mutual effort. Otherwise, love slowly turns into exhaustion. And no amount of chemistry can permanently repair a relationship where only one person is trying. So if a man walks away because a woman asks for respect, consistency, communication, and effort, the problem may not be that she asked for too much. The problem may be that he wanted too little. And that's where the fifth reason begins. A good woman can make a man confront himself. When a man is with someone emotionally mature, his excuses become harder to hide. If he avoids communication, she notices. If he refuses responsibility, she notices. If he constantly blames everyone else, she notices. If he says he wants to grow but refuses to change, she notices. Her presence becomes a mirror, and not everyone likes what they see in a mirror. Sometimes people don't leave because the other person is bad. They leave because the relationship reveals parts of themselves they don't want to face. A good woman doesn't have to expose a man's weaknesses intentionally. Her standards simply make them visible. And a man who isn't ready for self-reflection may mistake that discomfort for a lack of attraction. But sometimes what feels like pressure is actually accountability. A mature man doesn't run from that mirror. He looks into it. He asks himself, what am I bringing into this relationship? Am I giving what I expect to receive? Am I becoming the kind of partner I claim to want? Because the right relationship shouldn't only make you feel loved. It should make you more conscious. And sometimes the woman you call too much is simply the woman who refuses to let you remain exactly the same while expecting her to keep accepting everything. Now we come to the sixth reason. And this is where many women finally understand their real power. A good woman can leave. She can love you deeply and still walk away when the relationship becomes destructive. She can miss you and still maintain her boundary. She can forgive you and still refuse to repeat the same cycle. She can care about you without allowing you to repeatedly hurt her. That isn't coldness. That's self-respect. Once a woman understands that she will survive without someone, manipulation becomes much harder. Guilt cannot control her forever. Deep promises cannot control her forever. Temporary affection cannot erase repeated disrespect. Because she has learned one of the most important lessons in relationships. Love is not proven by how much pain you can tolerate. You don't prove your love by accepting betrayal. You don't prove your loyalty by accepting disrespect. And you don't prove that you're a good woman by staying where you're constantly being diminished. Real love requires truth, respect, responsibility, and effort from both people. And now we reach the seventh reason. The deepest reason. Some men don't want a good woman because they are not ready for what comes with her. A good woman doesn't simply ask to be loved. She asks for something real. She asks for consistency. She asks for emotional presence. She asks for respect. She asks you to stand behind your words. And most importantly, she doesn't allow you to remain exactly the same while expecting her to keep accepting you. She isn't trying to control you. She simply knows what kind of relationship she is willing to participate in. And here's the uncomfortable truth. You cannot build peace with someone who is addicted to chaos. You cannot build trust with someone who repeatedly chooses deception. You cannot build intimacy with someone who refuses vulnerability. And you cannot build a healthy partnership with someone who believes accountability is an attack. Sometimes a man doesn't reject a good woman because she isn't valuable. He rejects her because, somewhere inside, he knows that being with her requires him to grow. And growth is uncomfortable. It means leaving old habits behind. It means admitting when you're wrong. It means communicating instead of disappearing. It means controlling your ego. It means becoming responsible for the emotional environment you create. A mature man understands this. He doesn't see a woman's boundaries as a threat. He sees them as clarity. He doesn't feel threatened by her independence. He respects it. He doesn't want her to become smaller so he can feel bigger. He wants to build something where both people become stronger. And that's the kind of relationship a truly good woman deserves. Not a perfect man, an honest man. A man who can say, I was wrong. a man who can communicate instead of manipulate, a man who can love without controlling, a man who understands that strength isn't domination, strength is discipline. Strength is emotional responsibility. Strength is keeping your word when nobody is forcing you to. And the same truth applies to women. Being a good woman doesn't mean becoming endlessly patient with bad behavior. It doesn't mean accepting disrespect. It doesn't mean mothering a grown man. It doesn't mean proving your worth through sacrifice. Your kindness needs boundaries. Your love needs wisdom. Your forgiveness needs limits. And your heart needs self-respect. Because when kindness has no boundaries, people can mistake it for permission. When forgiveness has no limits, people can mistake it for acceptance. And when love has no self-respect, it slowly becomes self-abandonment. So don't become less loving. Become wiser with your love. Don't become colder. Become clearer. Don't stop believing in relationships. Stop believing that you have to lose yourself to keep one. The right man will not require you to destroy your identity to prove your love. He will not be threatened by your boundaries. He will not punish you for having standards. And he will not ask you to choose between loving him and respecting yourself. Because real love doesn't ask you to disappear. Real love gives two people the freedom to stand fully as themselves and still choose each other. So if someone walks away because you finally learned to respect yourself, don't automatically assume you weren't enough. Sometimes your boundary simply revealed that the relationship was built on your silence. Sometimes your standards reveal someone's intentions. And sometimes your decision to stop chasing reveals whether they ever intended to walk toward you. Remember this, you don't need to become less of a good woman to make the wrong man stay. You need to become strong enough to let the wrong man leave. Because your worth was never determined by who chose you. Your worth was already there. The real question is whether you have enough wisdom to stop giving that worth to someone who doesn't know how to value it. And when you finally understand that, you stop asking, why doesn't he want me? And you start asking something far more powerful. Does he deserve access to me? That is the moment everything changes. But there is one final lesson you need to understand. A woman's value does not increase because a man chooses her, and it does not decrease because a man rejects her. Write that again. Your worth was never sitting in another person's hands. The moment you understand this, you stop performing for love. You stop trying to become the woman you think a man wants. You stop changing your personality just to keep someone's attention. And you stop confusing being chosen with being valued. Because there is a difference between someone wanting access to you and someone knowing how to appreciate you. Many women spend years asking, how can I make him love me more? But a wiser question is, does the way he loves me deserve my heart? That question changes everything. Because love isn't only about attraction. It's about character. It's about consistency. It's about how someone behaves when they're angry, how they communicate when things become difficult, how they treat you when they no longer need to impress you. Anyone can be loving when everything is easy. Character appears when things become uncomfortable. That's why you should never judge a relationship only by its beautiful moments. Watch how conflict is handled. Watch how boundaries are respected. Watch whether apologies are followed by changed behavior. Watch whether promises survive after the emotions disappear. Because words can create hope, but patterns reveal truth. And if you constantly have to beg someone to respect you, you are not building love. You are negotiating for basic decency. Never confuse the two. A good woman doesn't need to become hard. She needs to become discerning. She can remain kind without being naive. She can remain loving without being desperate. She can forgive without reopening the same door. She can care without chasing. And she can walk away without becoming bitter. That is emotional strength. The strongest woman isn't the one who never gets hurt. She's the one who refuses to let pain destroy her standards. She learns, she grows, she becomes wiser. And she stops giving unlimited chances to people who repeatedly prove they don't value them. So if you're a woman listening to this, and you've ever wondered why someone walked away from you, Don't immediately blame yourself. Maybe you weren't too much. Maybe you were simply asking the wrong person for the right things. Maybe your standards weren't the problem. Maybe they exposed the problem. Maybe your boundaries didn't push him away. Maybe they revealed that he only wanted access without responsibility. And maybe losing that person wasn't the loss you thought it was. Sometimes losing someone is not the end of your love story. Sometimes it's the beginning of your self-respect. So remember these words. Never lower your standards to keep someone who benefits from your silence. Never abandon yourself to prove that you can love someone. Never make yourself smaller because someone feels threatened by your strength. And never believe that being a good woman means accepting everything. Be good, but be wise, be loving. But have boundaries, be forgiving. But remember the pattern. Give your heart, but don't give away your identity. Because the goal isn't to become the woman every man wants. The goal is to become the woman who knows exactly what kind of love she will accept. And when you reach that level of self-respect, rejection stops feeling like destruction. It becomes direction. You stop chasing people who don't choose you. You stop explaining your worth. You stop begging for consistency. And you finally understand the greatest lesson of all. The right person won't require you to betray yourself just to keep them. They will meet you with the same honesty, respect, and effort you bring. And if someone cannot do that, let them go. Not because you don't care, but because you finally care enough about yourself to stop settling for less.